In a live television speech on Monday, 21st February 2022, President Putin declared that he would ratify the decision of the Russian Duma to consider the Ukrainian regions of Luhansk and Donetsk as independent from Ukraine. In the hours following, Putin ordered Russian forces to enter these regions ostensibly as peacekeepers, given the fact that the regions in question have been the scene of violent confrontations between Ukrainian forces and pro-Russian separatists. The regions in question are considerably larger than the territories occupied by the separatists, giving rise to speculation that Russian forces will, in time, expand their area of operations to include the entirety of Luhansk region and Donetsk region, going well beyond the territories currently occupied by the separatists. In response, the Biden administration has issued a series of targeted sanctions on these two regions, sanctions that have been mirrored by British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. So why has Putin decided to send troops into Luhansk and Donetsk now? Well, the last 3 months have seen a buildup of Russian forces around Ukraine. Russia has deployed well over 100,000 troops along its border with Ukraine. It has also stationed the Russian 14th Army in the region of Transnistria along the Moldovan border, which is to the west of Ukraine, and it has a growing number of troops and assets in Belarus to the north of Ukraine, where Russian forces are currently engaged in exercises with Belarusian forces. This is all in addition to the Russian forces stationed in Crimea and the naval forces currently controlling the Sea of Azov. So Russia has effectively surrounded Ukraine, has militarily occupied Crimea, formerly a part of Ukraine, and was backing pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine in the regions of Luhansk and Donetsk. In response to this military buildup, the US administration has repeatedly declared that Russia is on the verge of a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and, were it to do so, the US would impose a series of debilitating sanctions upon Russia and would seek to terminate the Nord Stream 2 pipeline project carrying natural gas from Russia to Germany. The US went further and declared that, based upon its intelligence, it had concluded that a massive Russian invasion of Ukraine was imminent, with some sources even declaring that February 16, 2022 would be the go day. So how could Russia proceed with its military objectives in and around Ukraine while limiting the potentially serious escalation, both economically and politically, that the US was threatening to impose upon Russia as a response to a Russian invasion of Ukraine? The answer is to obfuscate the red line between building up forces in a threatening posture on the one hand and an actual full-scale cross-border invasion on the other, which would be a flagrant violation of international law and would risk serious economic consequences and a dangerous political escalation. This is what Russia has sought to do through the mobilization into Luhansk and Donetsk: blur the red line. The first step was for Russia to gain the cover of political and legal legitimacy, which it achieved, at least partially, through the decision of the Russian Duma to consider the two provinces in question as independent from Ukraine. Given the fact that the Russian Duma is a popularly elected legislature, this gave the decision by the Duma political and legal legitimacy from the Russian perspective, which Putin duly ratified. Now, given that Russia considered the two provinces in question no longer part of the territory of Ukraine, Russia was no longer in violation of any international law in sending peacekeepers to the region, ostensibly to protect pro-Russian Ukrainian civilians from attacks by Ukrainian forces. Now Russia would be using its forces defensively as peacekeepers against Ukrainian aggression upon these independent regions. The effectiveness of this approach of obfuscating the red line between invasion and legally covered defensive escalation is borne out by the statements of legislators in Western capitals suggesting that Russian troops have been going into and out of Luhansk and Donetsk for years, and that there's nothing new in the current actions of Russia. At the same time, it is apparent that the Russian mobilization may well in fact be the bridgehead for a much wider Russian mobilization into Ukraine that is yet to transpire. Thus, Putin has been able to obfuscate the red line between an invasion, which the Biden administration and NATO allies have warned against and have prepared severe sanctions in response to, and a defensive mobilization under the cover of political and legal legitimacy that risks further escalation. This is an example of strategic brinkmanship well executed. So this is a perspective on why Putin has decided to send Russian forces into Luhansk and Donetsk at this point. If you find this perspective interesting, please consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you.